Hello, 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 and welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Happy 4th of July, everybody. I'm so sorry I'm late. I am so sorry. I hit my elbow and it was yeah, it was it was bad for about, 5 minutes. I was late anyway, but I'm blaming it on my elbow. I hit the desk and I hit my finger. Oh, I don't know what I did. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to put the desk up or down. It was a mess. So welcome to the channel. Hello. Hi, welcome. My name's Tanya. Welcome on in. You can call me Tanya, Titanium Built, whichever. I don't prefer one over the other one. Happy 4th of July. Hopefully you had a great, 4th. It's been raining here. It's been raining. Yeah, funny bone, not so funny bone moment. It was like my funny bone and the side of it. Like that thing's gonna leave a bruise. Definitely gonna get a bruise on that one. Ooh, I hate hitting my elbow. That's like the worst. And it's not funny when you hit that funny bone. I don't know why they call it that funny bone. I think it's because other people laugh, if you're around somebody. So welcome in, everybody. We'll see who's in here. We got Cheryl, Mary Beth, we got Ladybug, we got Jan. Hey, Jan. Catherine, Ashley's in here. Try to go through them kind of quick for you guys. Hey, Jill. Welcome in. It's good to see everybody. Did I say Ladybug? Did I say hi to Ladybug? Hey, Ladybug. Hey, Jill. Hey, other Catherine with the C. Sirius is in here. Well, it's good to see everybody. Hey, Ozzy. Happy 4th. Hey, DM. Hopefully you're having a good 4th. Texas to his dog mom. Well, it's good to see you guys. West Virginia Holler Girls in here. Lenora. Gotcha. Man, we got a lot of people in here. Okay, well, good to see everybody. Hey, Sunshine. Hey, Aries. Did you say you had a party? Me drinking. Me forgot all the depressing. I don't, Aries. I cannot see. I cannot see you drinking for some reason. I feel like now that could be fun to watch. Hey, Bayou. Hey, Cricket Day. Hey, Fur Baby Mom. Speaking of fur babies, I got 2 of them behind me. Again, they came again. Hey, Linda. Hey, PKC. Yeah, you're not late for nothing. Sorry about that. Yeah, I hit I don't know what I hit, but I was out for a minute. I mean, it hurt. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't I couldn't bend it." I was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be you know, it wouldn't feel good if I was and just sitting here going, oh, when I first came on. And I thought I had typed in the chat. Well, I did. I typed in the chat, but I didn't send it. I didn't send. It didn't send. Hey, Albie, your cats are going nuts. Oh, unspoken heart illness. Oh, that's a sad name. I'm like, that's a sad name, but I like it. Crystal Burns. Hey, welcome in. Sweetly morbid bear. Nice to see ya. Well, it's good to see everybody. I'll get down to the bottom. That way we can get started. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hey, Michael. Oh, thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you. And who else do we have? I think I missed a couple people, but if I did, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tonight we're going to go over Idaho. So they came out with a new podcast, and it was on just recently. This one is going to be, we've watched. All right, June 26th. So there are 4 new episodes, and I was trying to get it to match up with the book. But this chapter that we're going to go on, like this one that we're going to go over tonight, it's just long. It's the investigative side of it. So I guess that's probably why it's so long. But excuse me, but we'll just read whatever we can. And then I figured I could always come back on a day live and read some chapters out too. I mean, or some sections out, because we don't have that much more of the book to go. We have less than half of it. But I FOIA'd, remember back in April 1st, April Fool's Day, I FOIA'd the police reports and stuff of Preston Lord. And I wanted to go over those with you guys. So Yeah. So I wanna get through the book before I do that so I don't, mess with everybody's brains too much. If that makes sense. If that makes sense. Aries too. Yeah. I wonder where he's at. Wonder where he's at. I feel so bad on the animals on the 4th. I know. I mean, like, if y'all saw my dogs right now, they wouldn't even be able to tell. You adopted 2 Yorkies 6 months ago, first, 4th. Hope they do okay. Oh my gosh, Phantom, that's so cute. Just cuddle with them. I heard that they like to be held close, like, dogs do. That's why they have those Thunder Buddies. Thunder Buddy. Okay. Well, we'll get on with it. We'll get on with it. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see everybody. If you guys don't mind, like I said, just hit the like for me if you could. That'd be great. Thank you, Cheryl. She said I look beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate that. I actually went to went to Target today, and I'm just walking down the aisles, minding my own business. I really was, and I was looking in the clothes aisle like as I'm walking. And I don't buy a lot of clothes from there, but I do buy some, and their quality is not too bad. And there was a blue shirt, like that baby colored blue that I always wear, and I got it in like a two-piece outfit. You guys liked it, so I bought it in California, and then I bought it in a tank top, and you guys liked it, so I got it in a t-shirt. I'll wear it tomorrow. I was like, I can't help it. I said, Vincent, I had to get this t-shirt. They like me in this color. My people do. Hey, Mystery. What'd you do? What happened with him? Oh, I didn't see your milestone. It didn't come up. Oh, it didn't come up and it didn't save. You had a milestone, Jan? Oh no. Was it your year? Wasn't a year. You've been here over a year, haven't you? Now I don't know how long. Because someone else was like a couple people were here, and I'm like, what? Hmm. Really, Aries? Oh wow. Was he back onto YouTube? Like another day in the neighborhood, Mr. Rogers style? It's another day in the neighborhood. I don't see him. Where was he at? What was he doing? Let me know. Let me know where he was. Fireworks going off right now does not bother your chihuahua at all. Catherine, I'm surprised. Those little dogs usually get bothered. They're usually bothered by everybody. Hey, Garrett. Sorry. I'm wasted. Aries. Sorry, we'll get into it, but man, Aries is man. Thank you, 40 Love Style. I appreciate that. It's a weird, funky red. It's like a red orange. I'm saying it's red though tonight because for red, white, and blue. It's under fan funding. 15 months. I don't see it on here though. It's probably under like usually there's like a little box up here and it'll say start and there's nothing up there right now for some reason. That's weird. Now I'm sad. I think it's sometimes when they come through too quick, like the comments. I'll find it though. I'll just go over to my channel dashboard and go over there and look. Oh, and I forgot to tell you guys. Wow. This morning when I woke up, well, last night when I went to bed, I always look at my numbers after the live and to see if maybe people hated or love me. And y'all love me yesterday apparently because I forget how much we had before I came on, but we gained like 30 subscribers or something like that. And so we were like right close to 17,000. And then today when I woke up, we hit 17,000 subscribers. And I was like, what? 17,000? And I was like, I was telling Vince, I was like, imagine 17,000 people. And he's like, yeah, that's like Chillicothe. But then he never told me what the population was. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's the town I grew up in. Let's see. 22,000. So I need to get over 22,059 subscribers. That's my goal. I want to have more people than the people that I grew up with, like the town that I grew up in. How about that? Thanks, Cheryl. Isn't that awesome? 17,000. I'm like, dang. But I work pretty hard. But 17,000 is a lot of people. It's a lot of people. I'm excited about it. I woke up, I was like, "Oh, look at that." I was like, "Look at this." It's gonna be it just gets more exciting. So I'm glad that you guys like the content that you're here, you know? I appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into it. So what I figure is we'll just read until I can't read anymore. This part of the book is pages 125 through 169. So it's pretty thick, pretty thick. Yes, Ohio. Good old Ohio. Melissa, are you from Ohio? I'm from Ohio. Mary and Patty, you'll sound like me. Nope, I'm using my broke one because it still works. It sounds like something I do. Okay. I think I got everybody in the chat. Okay. So let me grab my water and let me turn on my diffuser thing. Maybe that'll help. Oh, Mystery Breed on the backup. Oh no, it's not really backup. It's like my second channel. I think we're gonna do like trending topics over there. Trending topics on YouTube, trending topics like in celebrities, trending topics in just like the world, just not politics or religion. I don't, I don't want to do that to you guys. That'd be we'd all be yelling at each other. Okay, so we're on chapter 20. So that's pretty awesome. If you're just now joining the book and you're like, oh man, I'm behind, you'll be able to follow. It's Howard Bloom, so none of us can really actually follow, but we try. Oh wait, hold on one second. I wanted to look this up. Sorry guys. And then we'll start. Okay. So chapter 20. I got me a light because your girl's blind. Finally, I already had this light the whole time. I just forgot about it. Only read chapter 20 or 20 chapters then without being able to really see. So chapter 20. So you screwed up. You left the knife sheath behind. Next to one of the blonde girls, Sloppy. What did that boxer say? All plans go out the window once you're punched in the mouth. Seems that's true for killing too. Once the knives plunge deep into flesh, once the blood starts gushing, but it's not a catastrophe. You know what the science can prove and what it can't. Science is smart, but you're smarter. It was a time for clutching at straws, for heading off in all directions, in a case where nothing seemed to make sense. There were no guardrails. Any answer seemed as logical as another. With the national media converging on Moscow and screaming for a solution, with the grieving father of one of the victims constantly voicing his dismay at the lack of progress, a besieged Chief Fry instructed Payne to send out the team to chase down all leads. Armed with their broad marching orders, the investigators went to work. They focused on the classmates of the female victims. Boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, frat brothers, even guys the three women had casually run into on their last night out and about, and every single alibi checked out. Still not convinced, Fry ordered they examine. Oh, actually, let me put up a video for you guys. That's usually like that way you can see something. Man, I keep forgetting to make you guys a new video because I always forget until we're on here. Man, I really wish I had another one. I made more. I just don't know where they went. Actually, well, I want you guys to be able to see me too, so I'll just play the video. Why doesn't it let me? mercy. It usually lets me present it to you. There we go. There we go. And I don't know if I played it or not, so I'll just flip through. Okay. Still not convinced, Fry ordered they examine those stories again. Only when the second confirmation proved accurate was he at last willing to let the team move on. Yet even as they were still heading down this long, unproductive route, an indignant female FBI agent had dangled another possibility. It was sexist as well as bad detective work, she argued, to train our attention solely on men. Women kill too, she pointed out with a well-documented reason. Why not a jealous sorority sister or an ex-bestie? And despite her obvious embarrassment, she shared an eye-opening tale from her own college days that proved her point about the fury of a woman scorned. Convinced, a small group of investigators began poking into the sororities to dig up provocative dirt. Only once again, none of it had any operational relevance. But then widening the aperture even further, they began to look at not only co-eds, but women in the region who had previously been charged with assault. And just like that, they had something. A woman from up north with a history of violence who had come down to spend the football weekend in Moscow. Had one of her young female victims, or perhaps Ethan, done something to provoke her? But try as they might, they couldn't make the pieces fit into the puzzle. There was no intersection point between the suspect and any of the victims. Increasingly desperate, the team's approach turned particularly scattershot. The inquiries owed as much to wishful thinking as to insightful detective work. Although there was no evidence of SA to the victims, a great deal of time was spent tracing the whereabouts on November 13th of dozens of sex offenders in both Idaho and Washington state. At the same time, the rants of a loony white supremacist who lived in a nearby town caught their attention too. And on Fry's orders, they exhaustively tracked his activities on the fateful weekend. They also looked into a man who lived in an adjoining state who a year or more earlier had sent harassing messages to a local woman. These are all, I don't remember hearing about any of these. When it was quickly determined that he had only been in Idaho twice in his life, and neither occasion was within the past 6 months, Fry was not deterred. Keep at it, he ordered. Similarly, the comings and goings of a local who had once been accused of a knife attack were plotted and then plotted again for good measure. And at their conclusions, every one of these inquiries inexorably led to very dead ends. Payne grew tarnished and gloomy, no longer the swaggering ex-MP Fry, desperate to keep his team's morale from flagging, would resort to pep talks that to the more experienced state troopers and federal agents were quickly growing tedious. We'll get a break, you'll see, he cheered on. You never know when it will happen. To which one fed up trooper, a bet without an earshot, when out of earshot, had sneered, "You're right, you will never know." Wow. But as Fry had predicted, just when the team last expected it, they caught a break. Only problem was they didn't realize it. Man, people be talking about the Chiefs back. What? He said, "We won't get them. We won't get them." Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's Mr. Cute Cop behind him there, too. Sorry, Brian, he overshadowed you. "5 days after the murders, the Moscow police issued still another request for help, but the specificity of this appeal gave it more bite. Moscow detectives are seeking help from residents and businesses within the area of the King Road house, who have video surveillance at their residence or business between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Sunday, November 13th, 2022. The overnight assistant manager, her name at request remains secret, for a gas station on Troy Road, not far from the house on King Road, read this notice and swiftly decided to help. This was her town and a killer was on the loose, and so she felt she had a duty. She had not been working the night of the murders, but nevertheless, she spent the downtime on her graveyard shift reviewing the videos that had been recorded by the station surveillance cameras on November 13th. I had a weird feeling, she later said. Over the course of a long night, she intermediately kept at it. It was painstaking work, and at first she found nothing. Then just before she was about to wrap up her shift, the shadowy video revealed a small treasure. She spotted a white car speeding down Highway 8 before turning down a side street. The time was close to 4:30 a.m., and that was very much in the window the detectives were exploring. She took a screenshot of the footage and emailed it to the tip line address. Later that day, Moscow police officer appeared at the gas station to confiscate hours of surveillance footage. The quality of the images were taxing. They were flickering, recorded in varying light. At first glance, all that could be said for sure was that the pixels had captured a fast-moving white car. But it was a puzzle that had held their attention. They kept at it. And in the end, they had something. Sure, they were unable to penetrate through the dark shadows enveloping the car's windshield to make out a face behind the wheel, and the license plate was out of the camera's shot. Nevertheless, on November 19th, the team had made an important deduction. I forgot, I guess they said this at first. The killer had fled in a 2019 to 2023 white Nissan Sentra. Armed at last with what they felt confident was a preposterous lead, they once again charged off. Only they were headed in the wrong direction. The identification of the vehicle had been wrong. Inspired by the service station video, an industrious detective reached out on a hunch to Kane Franchik. I don't know his last name, sorry. Recently retired, Kane was now investing in real estate. As part of his portfolio, he owned a 6-unit rental complex on Linda Lane, about 0.3 of a mile from where the bodies had been found. And there was a surveillance camera fixed to the building's roof. Kane was a friendly, easygoing guy eager to cooperate. I downloaded the rooftop camera and gave them access to everything from 2 a.m. through noon on that Sunday, the 13th, he said. The tapes confirmed a good deal of what the investigation had first seen on the gas station video. There it was, the same white car. And once again, it appeared to be making a breakneck getaway through the dark King Road neighborhood streets at about 4:20 a.m. But they now realized they had a problem. They were no longer so sure the vehicle was a Nissan. From this new angle, it certainly didn't look like one. And after a while, they conceded they were stumped. They were unable to determine the model of the car. And without any idea of the make of the car, its year, or for that matter, its license plate number, or a look at the driver, they were back to square one. Just let me get my drink here. Look at Bryan in that picture. He's wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. I wonder if his dad was like, why does your eyes look like that, man? Yeah, he could. Now that sheaf is huge. Those sheafs, they're big. Like, it was probably because it was a frenzy and that's why he left it there. I mean, it had to been because the thing is huge. Like, you would notice it. And I'm pretty sure he did notice it whenever he was done with what he was doing. And I have a feeling he was going back to that 3rd floor to retrieve it. But then he may have saw Dylan, or he may have had sensed something, you know, like, got to get out of here. But I think that's when he decided to get out of there. Okay, I had to pause it so I didn't like cough in your guys' ears. Mary Beth, did you get burnt today? Hey, Mel Mac. Hey, welcome in, guys. Hey, Squeaky Will. Welcome in, everybody. I was on a different screen, so I couldn't see you guys. Okay, so 21. Building 27958A was a stark, modernistic 6-story sandstone and glass structure tucked away in a corner of the rolling pastoral campus of the FBI Training Academy in Quantico, Virginia. And in Pod E, a small, harshly lit room hidden in the building's maze of offices, the forensic examiners of the FBI Operational Technology Division toiled away. Their job was to help the Bureau and other government agencies determine the make, model, and year of a vehicle when there wasn't too much to work with. To accomplish this, the examiners employed an inventive bit of software that had been originally developed at the cost of about $1 million in taxpayer dollars for a secret defense department, the Irregular Welfare Technical Support Directorate. Yeah. With the click of a series of computer keys, the program searches with methodic diligence through a staggering inventory of cars until it identifies the make and model of a vehicle in a still image. Prodded by the federal agents working in the team, the Moscow detectives sent copies of their collection of car videos to the forensic specialist of the Quantico-based unit. And right away, the expensive software worked like a charm, or more precisely, 3 charms. The FBI forensic examiners first deduced that suspect vehicle 1, the white car caught on multiple cameras leaving the crime scene, was a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. However, upon further review, they would later decide the mysterious Hyundai might very well be a 2011 to 2016 vehicle. Then, with the passage of even more time, as the examiners continued to pore over an additional image of a car consistent with the Hyundai near the murder scene, they definitively narrowed down their analysis. It was a 2014 to 2016. I remember people made such a big deal out of that. Them like changing the car year. I mean, I don't know. Where were we? And that was the best analysis could do. And all the inventive manipulations of the pixels in the video footage of suspect vehicle 1, the bureau's techies still couldn't come up with a legible shot of the license plate, nor was there a single legible image of the driver. All they could decipher was a dark, murky shadow hovering over the steering wheel. Another large obstacle, there were 22,000 Hyundais in the region that matched the search criteria. The hunt would be a nearly impossible task, a needle in a haystack sort of challenge. But what choice did they have? One of the 22,000 Hyundais had very, very likely been driven by a killer. On November 25th, 12 days after the murders, the Moscow PD issued a nationwide be on the lookout alert, a bolo in cop speak. It was judiciously worded, the authorities trying not to oversell what they had. Detectives are interested in speaking with the occupants of a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra with an unknown license plate. Investigators believe the occupants of the vehicle may have critical information to share regarding this, meaning the Idaho student murder case. Yet there was a problem with the bolo. The Moscow authorities had disseminated the FBI's initial inaccurate determination of the Hyundai's year. In time, they would correct this error, but by then, the damage would have already been done. 4 long days passed before the campus cops at Washington State University, the school not much more than a 10-minute drive or so, across state lines from the Idaho murder house, got around to hunting for the car. On November 29th at 12:38 a.m., not even a half hour into the start of his midnight to 8 a.m. graveyard shift, Officer Daniel Tengo decided to catch up on a stack of paperwork. It was a particularly slow time. The university was in the midst of its Thanksgiving break. And near the top This pile was the bulletin the Moscow PD had circulated. It had been there for days. Tinago was hardworking, affable, a nighttime supervisor with a strategically professional goatee. Moments after he read the notice, he started tapping away at his computer, and a near match appeared on the screen. Bryan Kohberger, a grad student living in a university apartment compound on Northeast Valley Road, owned a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra. Dutifully, Tenagos passed the baton to his late-night patrol sergeant, Curtis Whitman. Whitman was an old guard campus cop, someone who had been deeply shaken by the decertification of a fellow officer for allegedly extorting sex from a co-ed in exchange for dropping an arrest for public intoxication. To diffuse tensions on campus in the aftermath of that incident, he had appealed to students in a public forum asking for their support and cooperation. And at the same difficult time, he also wanted them to grasp his sense of duty, his commitment to their safety. He was there to protect them, he pledged. Whitman didn't waste any time tracking the vehicle down. At 12:58 a.m., precisely 20 minutes after Tinago had initially identified a possible owner of the suspect vehicle 1, Whitman was staring through the nighttime darkness at a white Hyundai sitting in a graduate apartment complex parking lot. When he aimed his flashlight at the car, the numbers on the license plate were distinct as those on top of an eye exam chart. He radioed his find back to his boss. Tinago now had a license plate number to go with the car owner's name, and Tinago quickly forwarded the intelligence to the Moscow PD. But the team at headquarters showed no interest. The information from the WSU cop was cataloged and then swiftly filed away. The Bolo had requested that the authorities search for all 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantras. This one was a 2015 model. Ugh. That's gonna, that kind of looks bad. Let me change the picture here. Look at that picture of Bryan. I don't know why, but it looks like he's just staring into your soul. Was infatuated with Maddie. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, Squeaky. I think it was Maddie. I thought that for a long time. That was Maddie. For a while, but no. But in the beginning, for the first month, maybe month, I thought it was probably Kaylee, along with everybody else, in the true crime world. But then I don't know. The more I thought about it, the more I thought about the dog, stuff like that. Then I kind of went over to thinking that it was more Maddie he was after. And Kaylee was more of she just kind of was there to fight for her sister, Sad. Meanwhile, another car now sparked the team's interest. The team, in a sudden burst of inspiration, had landed on a new, intriguing idea. Kayla Gonzalez recently purchased used silver gray Range Rover. Perhaps they had now wondered the pretty blonde woman had caught the malicious attention of one of the vehicle's previous owners. Over several intensive days, believing they were finally onto something, the detectives tried to locate all the names listed on the car's registration. When they traveled up north to interview an individual with previous ties to the car, he had once turned belligerent. It didn't sit well with him that, by implication at least, he was being accused of 4 horrific murders. Tempers, according to one knowledgeable account, erupted. And frustrated, without any other leads to gnaw at, the officers gave as good as they got. But in the end, like all the others tied to the Range Rover, it became clear he was innocent, and they were forced to apologize. The investigators returned to Moscow in a deep funk, uncertain of their next move. They had no idea they had already received the key necessary to unlock the case, and that it had been stored away in one of the team's computer files, forgotten and ignored. Chapter 22. In the end, the Hyundai was the only lead they had, and desperate, they tried to leverage it. The premise, as Payne patiently explained it to the team assembled at the next early morning conference was simple. Sort through the mobile phone numbers that had pinged cell towers near the crime scene in the hours surrounding the murders. If one of the numbers belonged to someone whose name also appeared on their expanded master list of white Hyundai Elantra owners, then they had their suspect. It was a very smart idea unless the murderer was smart. A shrewd killer might very well have turned off his phone before heading out to kill 4 people. And when they completed the search, the bottom line was a heartache. None of the owners of the suspiciously pinging cell phones who owned an even more suspicious white 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. But investigations, like wars, proceeded simultaneously on several fronts. And even as they were striking out 300 miles up north in the pleasant city of Mandarin, the specialists of the Idaho State Police Forensic Service Laboratory had been quietly laboring away. They had found a single trace source of male DNA on the button snap of the leather K-bar sheath the killer had left tangled in the sheets of Maddie's bed. It was, they hoped, the solid clue that could crack the case wide open. The consumer DNA kits that are sold in any CVS need about 750 to 1,000 nanograms of the substance as a threshold amount to solve genetic mysteries. That's not much. It's smaller than a speck of floating dust and a whole lot less substantial. A single nanogram weighs a trillionth of a pound. There's nothing to it. Crime scenes often contain a whole lot less DNA than that. Forensic teams will routinely wind up with only 100 or so nanograms of DNA. Nevertheless, time after time, lab technicians have peered long and hard into their microscopes and wound up being able to apply even this minuscule amount to nail a criminal. The Idaho lab's challenge, however, was that the DNA on the knife sheath was touch male DNA left by a finger that had brushed against the metal snap. And it amounted to less than 100 nanograms. A whole lot less. In total, the scientists would grumble, about 20 cells, maybe even fewer. Getting the information they needed from a specimen that tiny was tough, but by November 20th, they had processed a sufficient amount of DNA. Now the mood in the laboratory took a new energy. They just needed to jump through one more investigative hoop, and the case would soon be on its way to being solved. And the next exercise, they felt, with a certainty reinforced by past experience, would be the easy part. The Idaho lab swiftly ran the DNA profile they unearthed from the button snap of the knife sheath through CODIS. The FBI's combined DNA index system held an impressive inventory of genetic information, offering swift access to the entire body of DNA profiles collected from crime scenes throughout the country, as well as genetic samples from all convicted felons, ex-offenders, and even unidentified human remains. There were over 20 million profiles in CODIS, and the Idaho team liked the odds of someone who had killed 4 people have acquired a criminal history. Only the system couldn't make a match. The identity of the man whose DNA was on the button of the knife sheath was not in CODIS. I was going to try to change this picture for you. But then who got lucky? To understand the genesis of what and probably happened next, it is necessary to go back 8 years to September 2014. A sun-kissed Indian summer morning, then as a kayaker paddled with impressive energy down the fast-moving waters of the Snake River, all of a sudden, his wandering gaze landed on an object floating limply in the distance beneath the Pierian Bridge in Jerome County, Idaho. Curious, he broke course to investigate and discovered a woman's body. Over the next 4 years, investigators headed down a winding and exhausting trail in an attempt to determine the identity of the woman and why she wound up floating face down in the cold waters of the Snake River. They combed the area, checking the local restaurants, motels, bus depots, and taxi services. Photos of what remained of the dead woman's face, as well as her fingerprints and DNA samples, were run through national databases. 14 states had reached out to the Idaho police thinking the Jane Doe matched descriptions of missing persons they were pursuing. All the audacious detective work, however, led nowhere. In August 2020, the case was officially classified inactive. The voluminous evidence folders stuffed into the dusty file drawers that were the burial grounds of the frigidly cold cases. But then, in relatively rapid succession, a flurry of unforeseen yet fruitless events occurred. For starters, Matthew Gamet, the director of the Idaho State Forensics Lab, was a scientist with a master's in microbiology, and he had been following with an avid attention the resourceful ways investigative genetic genealogy, IgG, in the parlance of the forensic trade, had lately been used to turn up the heat on cold cases. In 2018, to cite one celebrated example, California detectives had been at last able to identify the particularly vicious murderer and rapist known as the Golden State Killer by tying the DNA he had left at the crime scene to family members who had previously submitted their DNA voluntarily to public genetic databases. Gamet figured what had worked in California would work in Idaho too. I told y'all. I said nobody had a problem. Nobody had a problem with this when we were doing Golden State Killer and locking his ass up, right? We locked him up and threw away the key, and no one gave two craps. No one even thought about it. They're like, good thing you got him. But then they use the same science, for Bryan Kohberger, and everyone's like up and not everybody, but a lot of people are like up in arms, like, oh no, can't use it. The fudge we can and we will. We can and we will. Where are we at? Okay. He applied for and won a $3 million grant from the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance to fund genetic testing for use in long-standing unsolved cases. Spurred by the grant of government dollars, Idaho officials announced that the state was seeking bids from private companies that had expertise in advanced forensic testing. The bid was won by Othram, a small startup company based out of Houston, Texas. And one of the first seemingly dead-end cases Gamet sent their way was the mystery of the identity of the female corpse. The coroner had ruled suicide as the cause of death that had been found 7 years earlier drifting down the Snake River. Othram solved the mystery. Their scientists were able to use the minuscule amount of DNA from the corpse that had been preserved over the years to assemble a clear genealogical history. Wow. And the many-branched genetic family tree that took root led police investigators to a name, that of a woman who had gone missing nearly a decade ago from her home in San Diego. Case closed. 4 months later, that unlikely success got Gamet thinking, what if Othram could use its unique capabilities not just on cold cases, but also on a very hot one? A case whose solution might very well be embedded in the microscope DNA left on the bottom, the button snap of a knife sheath. Oh, yes, they did. Okay, I got to put up my other leg here. I'm going to sit in my blue chair again. We got to figure that out. I figure this microphone out. I have an extra one, but I don't know if it sounds good. Okay. So now we're on chapter 23. Let's see. How long is this? We're kind of getting through it a little bit. We might be able to do this in 2 sittings. Maybe. Some scientists take pride in their lofty detachment. They prefer to work on big internal mysteries. But at Othram gleaming cutting-edge laboratory in a suburban high-tech corridor just north of Houston, Texas, there was a shared sense of a very practical quest. 2 dozen or so assembled lab geeks had signed on for a do-gooders crusade, and now they were brought into the Idaho murder case. The company's mission had its idealistic roots in the shared vision of Othram's husband and wife founders, Doctors David and Kristen Middlemans. Middleman's zealous plan was to use genetic science to free innocents who had been wrongfully convicted and also help track down the actual criminals. There was, however, one immediate problem. To accomplish this on a scale the Middlemans had grandly envisioned would be an expensive undertaking. Setting up fully staffed lab and filling it with the sort of rare-field equipment like a Novasec 6000 that can process DNA so it can be uploaded to genetic databases required a good deal of money. Enter Charles Johnson. In the midst of a painful divorce, Johnson had fled from his marital home in San Francisco to the Texas suburb of the Woodlands, a burgeoning high-tech corridor just north of Houston. It was in this appealing suburb that Johnson, always gregarious, met the Middlemans. Over several intense conversations, Johnson grew intrigued with the unique genetic technology the company had developed to help solve cold cases. And when he met up with the Middlemans again in San Francisco at the end of a long dinner, he volunteered to do what he could to get them the money they needed. Johnson, who had a Rolodex full of connections, soon introduced the two scientists to John Burbank. Burbank was a self-made billionaire, venture capitalist, the founder of Passport Capital, a thriving San Francisco-based hedge fund with $4 billion under management, and no less significantly, someone with a deep thinker's appreciation for innovative ideas. And more congenital symmetry, he was a reader who immediately recognized the company's name was a reference to the Black Rock Wall and Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. I read that book in school. We had to. In 2019, Burbank provided it the crucial seed money Orthram needed to get going in a sufficient way, writing a personal check for $2 million and raising another $2 million from he'd offer with a financier's discretion. Sources. Secrets. Private investor. Can I get a private investor? Hey, Dreamcatcher. Hey, Ghost. Anybody want to be my private investor? I have business. I just need the investing. Okay. Can't say I didn't try. I don't need $2 million. It was a marriage made in startup heaven for a while. Burbank provided the checks and offered a veteran businessman's shrewd advice, and Johnson received a potentially lucrative chunk of stock for playing middleman to the Middletons. It was only later that the scientists discovered more about the man who had brokered the deal. The banner headlight above a hard-hitting article in the Boston Globe about Johnson was dismaying enough. A race-baiting troll has found acceptance in Trump's DC. But the disclosures were more distressing. He argued that, oh my Lord. Okay. The next things that come out of my mouth, I don't believe these. This man is awful. This man is awful. I don't believe in any of this, so I don't want anyone to clip half of this and be like, oh, she said that. You know what I mean? But, yeah. Okay, this is what he said. He argued that Black people are dumber than white people. Questioned whether 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Was banned from Twitter for threatening a Black Lives Matter activist. And posed making a white power sign while standing next to a white supremacist leader, Richard Spencer. Wow. Racist? And now Johnson was a fairly significant stockholder in their idealistic, justice-driven creation, a company where key scientists had relatives who had died in the Holocaust. Maybe feeling some type of way. Johnson quickly offered apologies for his past beliefs. I've evolved. He explained with terse contrition. People don't just grow out of that. You know what I mean? racism and stuff is taught at home. It's taught at home. We don't come out of the womb thinking, well, that person's a different color. I don't like them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Y'all know whenever I don't like when people will say stuff bad about people's race. Because my family's everything. Everything. You name it, we are. Not me, my brother's side. But you name it, they are. And they crazy too. That'll get you. Offered apologies. With the confining yet somewhat puzzling intimacy, he let people know that he had been acting under the orders from intelligence agencies and he was meticulously constructing a cover identity. Oh, Lord. The Millans, however, remained chagrined. I don't know what that means. And this was the stormy situation blowing the disruptive fury through the labs at Orthram at the request came from the Idaho authorities asking for assistance. To their credit, with the future of the investigation into the murder students hanging in the balance, the Orthram team put all that aside. Manning the Novasec 6000, they went to work. Over several intense days, they did it. From a minute speck invisible to the naked eye, they had created a DNA profile that could now be uploaded to commercial genealogy services. From this tiny acorn, the scientists hoped a family tree would take root and grow. And on one of the many branches, they would find a killer. The newly processed DNA profile was sent directly from the lab to Texas to the FBI's Quantico facility. It arrived at the same Hawking sandstone building where the Bureau's analysis had struggled to identify the car spotted outside the murder house. And another failure the tech team realized would be devastating. FBI's forensic genealogists like to say that their particular profession and its roots in the book of Genesis, where the litany of Beggets laid out humankind's original family tree. Now, however, Cinnamorgans pointed the way. This is the unit of measurement, the name of turn of the century tribute to Thomas Hunt Morgan, a pioneer biologist that quantified the genetic ties that bind people together. I couldn't see it for a minute. The higher the amount of shared Cinnamorgans, the greater the probability of common ancestor. Score a shared 60 or more on the Cinnamorgan, I don't know if I'm saying that right, scale with someone, and no doubt about it, you are related. The FBI probers found the initial foundation information they needed to launch their search for shared Cinnamorgans had readily accessible websites like GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Other popular sites, for example, Ancestry.com, 23andMe, were more reluctant to make the information people had given them available to law enforcement. This allowed them to build up clusters as they were known of families, and each group of relatives became another strong limb on the family tree that was taking shape. But the lab work would only take the investigators so far. To give flesh and blood context to what they were finding, they had to roll up their sleeves and do things the old-fashioned way. And chase down birth announcements, obituaries, and court records. At this stage, they were just gathering information, not trying to force or shape the findings with any preconceived notions. The operating rule was that the family clusters would all need to be definitively filed out, and until the laborious exercise was completed, it would be I don't know how to say this word, presumptuous to jump to any conclusion. Therefore, there was no sense of impeding game-changing moment when the interconnected Cinnamorgans led the way to the marriage of Henrietta Catherine Botinio and Michael Francis Kohberger Sr. on June 17, 1954 in New York City. Oh, they got a marriage certificate. And even as the limbs of the family tree spread eventually through the generations of the birth of Bryan Christopher Kohberger on November 21st, 1994 in Pennsylvania, there was no intimidation that the puzzle was about to be clarified. 9 years younger than me. Wow. However, soon the incriminating coincidences began mounting up. The DNA on the knife sheath button had ultimately led them to a grad student who was enrolled at Washington State University, which was about 10 miles away from the house on King Road. And they discovered he could make the trip in the white 2015 Hyundai Elantra that was registered in his name. The FBI investigators now knew, as any good cop would know, that there was no need to look any further. They had found their suspect. What happened next, though, remains filed away in the still secret history of the case. For a while, the FBI, as early as December 11, 2022, had identified Bryan Kohberger as a person of interest in the 4 student murders. They did not share the discovery at this point with either the Moscow police or the Idaho State Troopers. Rather, the decision was made. People with knowledge of the deliberations would confide in low voices to keep the name to themselves. Why? One theory had it that the Bureau was simply being cautious. An IGG determination was not the sort of evidence that could lead to an indictment. It could never, according to Justice Department practice, even be cited as in an arrest warrant. Its use in solving cold cases was one thing, but this attempt to use genetic genealogy to target a suspect in an active investigation was an entirely different matter. Not to me. A murderer is a murderer. Get him off the street. And a disturbing one. I've always thought, and this is, you guys are going to be, you're going to throw me under the bus. I'm going to get thrown under the bus for this one. But I've always thought that at birth, you should just have to give a little piece of your DNA and they should put it into a database. That way, if your ass acts a fool, you'll get in trouble for it. Maybe you won't be a murderer when you grow up. You know what I mean? Maybe you won't. I don't know. I just always thought that, and I thought that would be a rule by now, like a thing. You know what I mean? Like a thing, like a database. You put your little data, a little foot in there, maybe like a little footprint or something. I don't know. Can't do a footprint because you're a little baby foot, but you know what I mean? If you didn't want to do but they do saliva. They don't have to do blood or anything. Yeah, ghosts, they do cover a lot of stuff. But I don't think that they had anything to do with it. I was just reading. Hmm. Or reading. I was reading the chat. The best IgG could offer was a hypothesis, and a dubious one at that. It presented a conclusion forged out of a newfangled scientific technique that had yet to be fully tested in a court of law. Sure, IgG could maybe help point the way, but before an arrest could be made, the detectives would still need to do the legwork to build a case that would stand up under heavy scrutiny in the courtroom. So why muddy the investigative waters? Perhaps the Bureau felt it would be better for the task force to go about its job methodically. Let them build their case from the bottom up rather than start with a suspect. That way there'd be no fears that the process could later be impunged by a sly defense attorney. No one would charge that the authorities had it in for the suspect and had tailored things to incriminate him. Or there was another theory, and this one was a whole lot less flattering. As these observers saw it, the FBI's decision was predicted entirely on self-interest. This was the Bureau's triumph, and they were unwilling to share the glory. Here was a chance to polish a politically tarnished reputation with one very public arrest, and they didn't want to be robbed of this prize. And whatever the reason, as the Kohbergers packed up the white Hyundai to head east for the holidays on December 12th, the FBI had decided to begin covertly watching the father and son's every move once they left Washington. And neither Bryan nor Michael Kohberger ever suspected a thing, and for that matter, neither did the Moscow task force. Bum, bum, bum. I'm gonna grab my drink. And switch my legs. Yeah, Ozzy's right. Yeah. It was 8 hours. And in my opinion, this is my opinion, um, if she were in flight mode that night and she got back into bed and just tucked herself back in and went to sleep, she could have went to sleep for 8 hours. Do you know what I mean? And woke up late. I mean, 11 o'clock, waking up at 11 o'clock is like noth that's early for a college kid, if you think about it. You know what I mean? I know when I was that age, you wouldn't get me out of bed. Not unless I had to go to work. Then I went and hung over. I only drank for like 2 years of my life, but it was fun while it lasted. I mean, like, not heavy, but, like, you know what I mean, going out every weekend, doing the fun things, doing all the things. I did that for a little while. I was fun. I was fun. What can I say? I was a blast to hang around, you know? No, I'm saying if she was in flight mode. So, okay, and I've told this story before. There's and I'm not gonna tell the story, like, of why I know, but, your body can go into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and you can go into more than one. And I think that she was frozen shock, I really do, and I think that she, in her mind, when you go into, like, flight mode, you'll convince yourself. You'll convince yourself. You didn't hear nothing, go back to bed. If you go back to bed, this didn't happen. This isn't happening if you're sleeping. Your brain will do that to you. It'll shut down. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, it is. It's a beautiful thing that your body is able to do these things because it helps you with trauma, you know? I've done it. It wasn't a killer in my house, but, someone was killed, and I did it. So, I don't know. I can relate. I can relate to Dylan in that aspect. And Bethany, she was all the way on the bottom floor. I don't think she heard a thing. I don't think she heard a thing. I really don't. I think she was just kinda chilling. Just chilling, sleeping, you know what I mean? Hey, Glue Bug. I like your little cars, little ambulances. That's cute. Okay, so, was that the last of that chapter? We have one chapter? Yeah. Chapter 24. This is such an interesting case, though. You know what I mean? Like, really, because it's just interesting. Yeah. I don't know. When my incident happened, I didn't tell my mother what I knew. I did, and it was her husband. I I didn't. I just let her believe he might have been in the hospital, arrested. We were just thinking of all the things, you know what I mean? Because it was 11:30. It was like 11 o'clock at night. We're like, "Why isn't he home? Where the hell was he at going and having fun?" But he wasn't, you know? Yeah. And I think he did this all by himself. I don't think that there was any other people. No ninjas in there, you know? But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I need to look up that video. That video was really good. I did a video over, like, shock or, like, it has Dylan on the cover of it. It's in my Idaho playlist, but, that was a good video I did. I had, like, a whole, like, presentation and stuff, but, you know. If you're in flight, though, yeah. I I was even, like, even during my car accident, I don't remember any of it. I don't remember hours, 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 hours. I mean, I remember I think I woke up it was before I went back to surgery, so it was hours, it was like 4 hours or so, 5 hours. But I mean, you know, and I was on 15, I was on the scale from 0 being dead, 15 being fine. They were like, "You was just sitting up talking like there was nothing going on." They're like, "You don't remember any of it?" And I'm like, "I don't remember a thing." That's why I say your mind's a beautiful thing. because it does protect you from certain things. So number 24, the Bureau's watchers called it a hat box operation, and the jargon was a bit of an anachronism. It was a throwback to an era when gen men sporting fedoras over their bright crimped hair, I don't know how to say that, would be out in force on the street to monitor a target's every move. Back then, a sea of hats would box a suspects in. These days, the watchers have a few more tricks at their disposal: undercover vehicles, surveillance vans, low-flying fixed-wing planes, and that's just for starters. But the name has stuck. And on that morning of December 12th, 2022, when the white Hyundai Elantra, Bryan Kohberger at the wheel, his father Michael riding shotgun in the front seat, pulled out of its space in the parking lot fronting 1630 Northeast Valley Road in Pullman, Washington, the surveillance plan was hatbox all the way. The commitment to stealth was no less meticulous. For not only were the agents determined to keep their activities secret from the chief suspect in a quadruple homicide, but for reasons shaped by private logic, they were also set on making sure the Moscow task force had no inkling either. As the watchers went to work, they kept their eyes on the prize, but also watched their backs. The local team never knew their federal partners in the case had a match on the night shift DNA, or that the Bureau was now intent on tracking the suspect's every move. But by the day's end, the hatbox operation had turned into a colossal screw-up. In their determination not to tip their hand to the Moscow task force, the watchers had decided not to pick up the Kohbergers until the car got well out of the area. This didn't seem a problem. They knew what route the travelers would be taking. But the Bureau's suspicion was wrong. The white Hyundai, along with its invaluable passengers, had seemingly vanished. Where'd they vanish off to? Where'd they go? They went down. That's why they went downward. There's not much to Loma, Colorado. Barely 1,300 residents were scattered about a few big farmsteads. But the U.S. Route 6 passed straight through the center of town, and in 2015, the Colorado Department of Transportation thought it was high time to install Loma's first traffic light. It went up at the bustling, things being relative, of course, intersection of Route 6 and Highway 139. It wasn't long after that when the town's engineer decided that as long as they were going to all this trouble, they might as well affix an automated license plate reader to the light pole too. Remember them readers they used to try to send you a ticket? Oh man, those didn't last long, did they? Sorry, I was trying to think. And on December 13th, when the surveillance team was frantically scrolling through the thousands of images in several states, what did I just do? What was that? I pressed a button. It was a mic drop. How did I do that? Now that was cool. Wish it was a better moment. I don't know how I did that. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. That's funny. Okay. It wasn't long after that. Okay, I read that. And so on December 13th, when the surveillance team was frantically scrolling through the thousands of images in several states, caught on the automated license plate readers, the one in Loma came up a winner. It caught Washington State plate CFB 8708, the white 2015 Hyundai Elantra registered to Bryan Kohberger. With this sighting, the hatbox op was once again underway. This was their second chance, and they were determined not to fumble it. Yet it wasn't long after the vigilant watchers on the ground and in the air had resumed their monitoring that they were once again in danger of losing their suspect. Lights flashing, and Indiana sheriff had ordered the Kohbergers to the side of the road. The team was stunned. The encounter had several predictable outcomes, and nearly all were dangerous. Had a conscientious Indiana sheriff connected the white Hyundai to the bolo issued by Moscow PD, Was he about to make an arrest before the final incriminating pieces had been fitted into the puzzle? If it happened, it had the potential to be catastrophic. The suspect would be alerted, and in the aftermath, if he followed the advice of a canny defense attorney, the army of investigators would never have the opportunity to make their airtight case. And another rub, the Bureau would be deprived of its moment of glory. There were tactical concerns too. Was the suspect armed? Would someone who they believed had killed 4 people hesitate to kill again? Was the sheriff's deputy in danger of becoming another victim? Perhaps they should abandon their cover and intervene before the situation escalated. Didn't the possible threat to a lawman's life supersede anything else? Or another troubling consideration, maybe Kohberger wouldn't stay put on the shoulder. He had gunned the Hyundai and raced down the highway. A decision had to be made. Finally, the order went out from command to stand back, at least for now, and so they watched, antsy yet disciplined, as the traffic stop began to play out. And at the first sign that things were falling apart, they were prepared to hit the sirens and the flashing lights and swoop in. But to their immense relief, it wasn't long before the white car had pulled back into the interstate and once again headed east. What was that all about? The watchers asked one another. But within just minutes, an Indiana state trooper, lights flashing, had directed the white car to pull over again. What indeed was going on? That's just Bryan Kohberger driving. He gets pulled over a lot. Don't they? Solo? They're wide. This is like meth face. I don't know how I just did that mic drop thing, but this Mac keyboard's pretty cool. It does things I don't know what it does. What's this? Oh, I don't know. Do we have any more pictures? Oh, just Kohberger. I can always put one over me. Oh, there's. I think I had the mic again. Oh wait. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. I'll put that on for a minute. I could always put an overlay up of me. Like, I could do this. I can hear fireworks out there. Oh, look, I'm still right here. You can still kind of see me. I'm just going to grab my drink, and then I'll keep. Thank you guys for being here. If you're just now joining us, we are, we're getting ready to watch the podcast here soon, but we're reading through part 4 of Howard Bloom's new book. He just came out with this book. We got it like the next day after it came out. We're on part 4. It's called The Forensic Scientist Story. So it's about like more of like the forensic side of the Idaho 4 case, the Idaho 4 massacre that happened, back November 13th, 2022. So we're about halfway through this chapter, and we're not going to read the whole thing, I don't think. Damn, we're so close. Wow, we did better than I thought. And then we'll watch this podcast that just came out, and it has one of Bryan Kohberger's friends on it. Well, not friends, I'm sorry. I guess they wouldn't be considered friend. But it was a student that he taught, teacher's assistant. That's what he did. So it was one of the students. And she or he is coming forward to talk for the first time ever. So I'm excited to watch it with you guys. For days, Michael Kohberger had been struggling, however, to get a handle on the overwhelming sense of dread that had been weighing on him in the aftermath of his meeting up with his son at the Pullman Moscow airport. He had not tried to think about its origins. Michael later told relatives, but now Michael began to suspect that there must be something purposeful guiding the rapid succession of police stops. Each was one part of a whole, and its meaning was about to be made clear. Michael embraced himself for what would happen next. Please get your license and registration, the trooper barked. He stood outside the passenger side window and spoke across Michael as if he weren't there. Bryan once again hunted for the documents. When you were driving by me there, the trooper continued, his voice now easier, you were a little too close to the back of the semi. You had only 1 car length. Bryan, respectful cooperative, replied that only a few miles down the highway they had been stopped for an identical infraction. The trooper seemed suddenly suspicious. This was his stretch of highway. There wouldn't be another state patrolling close by. Why lie? Michael jumped in to clear up the confusion. He explained that it had been a sheriff's deputy. That made sense. The trooper decided it was a county guy. It was like a black SUV. Then Michael decided to speak up, once again launched into a convoluted account of fatal SWAT team shootout at the off-campus apartment house earlier that morning in Pullman. And once again, his telling left the lawman perplexed. If it was a piece of a larger puzzle, the trooper clearly had no grasp of the problem that needed to be solved. Where are y'all heading to? He asked, eager to return to firmer ground. In unison, the Kohbergers replied, Pennsylvania. PA, that's a long haul. You guys scared of planes? Everyone shared a good-natured laugh. After only a warning and again no ticket, the trooper wished them a safe trip. As the car pulled back into the highway, Michael played back the encounter in his mind. His son's emotional temperature, he recalled, hadn't appeared to have jumped a notch. Only later he'd wondered to a relative whether that was the demeanor of someone who had nothing to hide, or was it an icy calm of someone incapable of feeling fear. Your son's cray-cray, that's what it is. You know it, I know it, we all know it. The FBI watchers, too, had their unanswered questions. Were the Indiana patrol officers onto something? Had they made the Hyundai, or equally implausible, was it simply what it seemed to be? 2 consecutive stops for tailgating. As far as Michael, now that they were edging closer to the familiar dense forest and humpback peaks of the Poconos, he found himself wishing that this journey would go on forever, that they would just drive and drive, for he had begun at last to put a name on what he suspected he would find at the end of the trail. Wow. Let's see. And then 26. Okay. Okay. The FBI watchers were thankful. Oh, let me see. I saw that the Cat's Life had an. Let me go over there. Cat's Life has a milestone. I saw that. 15 months. See, Jan, I wonder how many months yours was, because I can't believe you guys have been here that long. I can't believe I've been here that long, but I guess I have. Wow. Are you talking about Jack, the guy that was with them at the food truck? He was he was supposed to be just chaperoning them, like making sure the girls got where they needed to be safely. Yeah, congratulations. Thanks for being a member so dang long, girl. Man, thank you. That's a long time. Really, thank you. That's a very long time. I like my oldies in here, you know? You guys are my oldie but goodies. I love that. I love that so much. The FBI watchers were thankful for the snow. It had started to come down in a swirl of thick white flakes over the winding Albrightsville, Pennsylvania roads, and that meant Bryan Kohberger would very likely be staying put. Earlier that afternoon, December 16th, at just about 2:30, the Hyundai carrying the Kohbergers had completed its cross-country journey. The family lived in a fraying white clapboard house in a gated community called Indian Mountain Lake Village, although the name was a bit of a mystery since there was neither an Indian, a mountain, nor a lake in sight. A decade ago, the residents had largely been modest summer cottages for families wanting to escape from the heat and tumult of New York and Philadelphia. My mom used to go to the Poconos when she was a kid. Or like a teenager, she said that's where like all the rich people lived. I don't know if I guess it's not true still, because they say they don't have the money, but but now full-time residents were the norm. Still a throwback to the community's grander days, there were a manned sentry box, a pair of white broom gates at the main entrance. The high security was meant to keep the homeowner safe and sound from all the many dangers that lurked outside. However, after the FBI's team saw the boom gates raise high and Bryan Kohberger drive through, one of the observers couldn't suppress an ironic speculation. They were very plausibly had just let a quadruple murder into their midst. The falling snow had gave the Bureau another advantage, the time to think. From the start, they had been flirting with disaster. First, losing track of the targeted vehicle would have been bad enough. Then, not one, but two unexpected highway traffic stops, and each a disaster just waiting to happen. By now, the Bureau had learned that the Indiana authorities' vigilance had been prompted by a drug interdiction operation that zeroed in on out-of-state license plates. That's what I said. Well, if Howard Williams right, that's what I said. I said they picked him up because I just said this on last live, y'all. I said because those interstates through there are drug hubs, and yeah, that's what they are. And they'll pull anybody over. They pulled me over because I was from Ohio and Indiana. I told y'all about that. Remember, I said it's because I was from out of state, and they're just saying that in the book. So maybe I was right about something. Maybe I was, because there is a lot that comes through here. By now, the Bureau had learned that the Indiana authorities' vigilance was prompted. Okay, we read that part. But if Kohberger had behaved differently, if an Indiana cop had the nationwide bolo about a white Hyundai Elantra taped to his dashboard, it was anyone's guess that would have happened. And so they considered if this op was indeed accident-prone, then maybe it would be a good practical politics to be able to share the blame, even if it was meant sharing the glory. Besides, they had not originally anticipated that there would be a Pennsylvania component to the hunt. The locals would need to get involved. The jurisdictional issues were impossible to ignore, but most persuasive. They had come to realize it just didn't make sense to keep the Moscow task force out of the loop. It had grown clearer and clearer that they need their help to bring this case to a nearly ironclad juncture where an arrest would be legally possible. Now the snow kept falling, and they kept thinking until at last the Bureau team, like good soldiers, finally did what it should have done days earlier. All along, Corporal Brett Payne had been praying for a name, and now he had it. On December 19th, the Bureau, according to the official records, shared what had been discovered after the forensic genealogist had extended the DNA-rooted family tree to its furthest branch. Unofficial insider accounts, however, pegged the notification to a day, maybe even to earlier, although those might be attempts by the FBI to mitigate the sting of their self-interested delay. But while there is debate over the actual date, there is no disagreement that once Payne had Bryan Kohberger's name, he jumped into action. Early on, he entered the name in the license plate into the feds' license plate the feds had shared into the motor vehicle record system. The computer screen promptly displayed a state driver's license. It listed Bryan Kohberger as a white male, a sturdy 6 foot. I know people had problems with that, his height. He's 6 foot and 185, which Payne told himself was pretty close to the broad description of the intruder Dylan Mortensen had seen, as well as he also matter-of-factly conceded a few thousand other guys on either the U of I or WSU campuses. Then he turned to the photograph. Was this the face of a killer? He stared at it intently, but for all his scrutiny, he saw nothing out of the ordinary. Nevertheless, he just kept boring in on the photo, and just like that, something caught his gaze. The eyebrows. They were bushy, same as those of the intruder Dylan had spotted, and this small confirming detail, while too subjective to be admissible in court, further nudged his sense of urgency. Now, you know damn well they took that picture of Dylan Mortensen and said, does this look like the guy? You know what I mean? You know they did. I would have. You'd think they would have. Armed with a name, he could also hunt for a cell phone number here. Here, for once, he got lucky. For when he searched the department's own records to his immense satisfaction, he learned that back in August, Kohberger had stopped for a routine. He's been stopped for a routine traffic infraction. A Latah County Sheriff's deputy had nailed the grad student for driving without a seatbelt and was the standard practice, had included Kohberger's phone number in the summons report. With that number in hand, he reached for another file. In the days of the hunt, he had blindly bombarded the phone companies with search warrants requesting information about any devices that had pinged the cell towers in the vicinity of the King Road house between 3 and 5 a.m. on the morning of the murders. Now he could return to his previously unsatisfying list in a more purposeful way. He searched to see Kohberger's number had been recorded. This discovery would be smoking, or more accurately, the pinging gun. Payne found nothing. Kohberger's phone had not been caught at the crucial time by a cell tower in the vicinity of the murder house. It was not encouraging, but he decided to store his knowledge away until he hoped another part of the puzzle might give it more meaningful context. And so, undeterred, on December 23rd, more than 5 weeks after the murders, he decided to investigate what Kohberger's phone had been up to around the time of the homicides. He sent a search warrant to AT&T, the provider of Kohberger's cell service, requesting the records for the number between November 12, 2022 at 12 a.m. and November 14th at 12 a.m. A detailed report arrived back at his desk that same day. And with that began the steady, careful paper chase. Working side by side with Benjamin Dean, an experienced FBI agent, and the Salt Lake City Field Office Cellular Analysis Survey team, they set out to chart the interaction between Kohberger's pinging phone and the time-coded surveillance videos that had been captured, passing glimpses of the white Hyundai Elantra in the fateful hours after midnight on November 13th. When they were done, they had put together a grimly compelling narrative. According to their reconstruction, Kohberger, or at least his phone, had left his apartment in Pullman at 2:47 a.m. on November 13th and had been heading south when abruptly it stopped, reporting to the network. And we all know Ann Taylor saying that he was out driving around before midnight. Well, buddy, we got you leaving at 2:47. Turned off, switched on airplane mode, or for that matter, the phone could have traveled into a rural area with no cell reception. This was northern Idaho after all. But those possibilities seem highly unlikely when the videos that had captured what appeared to be Kohberger's car filled in the picture. There was the white Hyundai, the infamous suspect vehicle 1, record making 3 slow, laborious passes by the 1122 King Road from 3:29 a.m. to nearly 4 a.m. The car returned a 4th time at 4:04 a.m. only to abruptly disappear from sight. Yet at 4:20, there it was again, hightailing it out of Moscow at a breakneck speed. And just as suddenly as the telltale 4:48 a.m., the cell phone pinged back to life. Heading out south from Moscow on US 95, the device continued to ping its way on a circuitous route through the countryside. But at nearly 5:30 a.m., the phone was making its way back to Pullman just at the same time as surveillance cameras spotted the white Hyundai crawling back to the WSU campus neighborhood. There was also a tantalizing coda to the drama Payne and the FBI expert had stitched together. At 9 o'clock that Sunday morning, Kohberger's phone left Pullman and headed back towards Moscow. Then for 9 long minutes, an interlude heavy with mystery, the phone was pinging like crazy off the cell phone tower that serviced the King Road house. For many of the cops on the task force, the explanation was clear. The murderer was returning to the scene of the crime. Wonder if he was disappointed. You know what I mean? When he came back. When he came back and nobody was, I mean, there's no cops, there's nothing there, nobody's there. I mean, the house is just sitting there like, without the cop car though. You know what I mean? He's probably like, ugh, looking like this, but without the cop car. I forgot where we were. Okay. But not so fast. Fry had challenged his team leader. What about the gap when Kohberger's phone was silent? It included the precise time when the murders had occurred. How could the team tie Kohberger to the crimes if they couldn't even prove he had been in the house when the murders happened? Payne, always resourceful, had an answer, or at least a theory handy. It had been its incidents and author Conan Doyle's The Adventure of Silver Blaze, where Holmes' canny solution had been prompted by a curious incident of the dog that didn't bark. Payne, too, had found reassurance in a negative fact. Individuals, he would write, can either leave their cellular telephone at a different location before committing a crime or turn their cellular phone off prior going to a location to commit a crime. This is done by subjects in an effort to avoid alerting law enforcement that a cellular device associated with them was in a particular area where a crime is committed. And although he didn't come out and say it, a further implication was clear. The shrewdness was precisely the sort of precaution a graduate student in criminal justice setting out to commit the perfect crime would employ. Payne was now convinced. The cell phone records and the suspect vehicle 1 car videos inexorably pointed towards Bryan Kohberger, but he also understood that no judge would sign an arrest warrant for a murder that was stitched together with all the speculation. And he further conceded when pressed by Chief Fry, all the pinging phones might, under close scrutiny, add up to nothing but a lot of noise. The discomforting truth was that cell phone towers cast a wide net, often as far as 12 to 14 miles. In a town like Moscow, that would take a lot of territory. However, tempting it was to claim the data was infruitable evidence, and the reality was that being in the vicinity was not the same thing as being in the exact address. And so as Christmas came and went, the hunters gathered once more on December 26th in the PD's conference room. Only now the discussion turned to refuse garbage cans actually, and just like that, things started to improve. As it happened in Albrightsville, there was talk in the Kohberger household about garbage too. Melissa, the older of Bryan's 2 sisters, had come home from the holidays from New Jersey. For over a decade, she had been a practicing psychologist who specialized in helping families deal with thorny issues. And now, without really trying, she began to notice certain things about her own family. There was Bryan wearing surgical gloves as he suctioned the Hyundai's upholstery and trunk with a shop vacuum. Then there he was in the kitchen late at night sorting his day's personal detritus into plastic Ziploc bags, and though she had not set out to spy and afterward wished she had never seen it at all, there was her brother sneaking out after midnight. Like a man on a mission, he walked down the long driveway in the starlit chill to dispose of the family's trash bags in the next door neighbor's bins. When she put a name and purpose to all she had been witnessing, it left her shaking. At last, though, Melissa found the will to share her increasingly certain deductions with her father, Michael. Michael listened, yes, yet he could not respond. A long, agonizing silence filled the room until at last he turned his back and walked away. Okay. Well, I'm going to leave the book there. And then after the podcast, if we have time and we still want to hang out, we'll read the rest of part 4, because it's really not that much longer. So, but we'll take a break. We'll take a breaky break, and we'll go over to the podcast and we'll watch that, because it's going to be good. I hope. Better be good. This is going to be called let me make sure I got the right one, actually. I don't want to get the wrong one. Nope, I almost had the wrong one. Look at that. Good thing I looked. So we're on episode 3 of season 2. Season 1 is all on my playlist if you want to go over there. And some of them are they're all pre-recorded, so you won't have to deal with the live or anything like that. With me talking, it's just straight podcast. I do put pictures up, overlays up over the screen. That way you guys have something else to look at while you're listening to the podcast. Now, in an exclusive interview, a former student at Washington State University breaks down what it's like having Bryan Kohberger as her teaching assistant for her criminology course, both leading up to and after the murders. Bum, bum, bum. Might be loud. Thank you guys for being here. I was going to pause this for a minute and go back over to the chat and take this thing down. Take old Bryan off the screen here. He's probably been up here enough. Oh, that's where we are. Stop sharing screen there. Stop the screen there. Stop sharing. Okay. Let's put up a different overlay. Let's put up a. Well, they're going to be talking about Kohberger, so I guess we'll put him up somewhere, or we'll put this picture back up for now, and I'll go through the commercials here, because there are a few commercials. This is about 30 minutes long though, and within the commercials, it's not that long. And if you guys don't mind just taking a quick second and hitting that thumbs up, I really do appreciate you guys all being here. I really do. Thank you guys so much. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are amazing. True crime junkies right here, you know? I love it. Sorry, let me put this up. I thought I had it up. Huh. Can't hear it. Okay.
Get an instant $5 in points. That's Drop, your go-to for shopping rewards.
We all like to believe in our hearts that if we come across somebody who's violent or dangerous, that we'd get a spidey sense. Did you have that feeling that he was capable or off?
To be honest, I never got any of those feelings. However, I do remember this one incident that happened.
This is The Idaho Massacre, a production of KT Studios and iHeartRadio. Season 2, Episode 3, In Class with Kohberger. I'm Courtney Armstrong, a producer at KT Studios with Stephanie Leidecker and Gabe Castillo. On November 13th, 2022, the murders of 4 young co-eds at the University of Idaho left senseless tragedy in its wake. From the lives lost to devastated family members and friends to terrified students left behind wondering, what's next? But beyond that is what transpired in accused murderer Bryan Kohberger's orbit. We don't know of Kohberger's guilt or innocence. He is presumed innocent unless otherwise determined in a court of law. What we do know is that the accused was a criminology PhD student and teacher's assistant at Washington State University, Pullman. We also know that after the murders, up until he left campus in mid-December, Kohberger attended classes. In an effort to gain a greater understanding of what happened during that time, Stephanie Leidecker speaks with a former criminology student in Kohberger's class, Cassie. Cassie has never spoken out before, and we're withholding her last name to protect her privacy.
Well, I'm sure we could figure that out.
Stephanie.
How many Cassies are in his group?
There's been a lot of press about this case out there. So really our goal is always like less about the massacre itself and more about the human experience, right? You have such a unique perspective on that. So take me back to day one, how you got to that particular school and what you're studying and kind of even the first day of class. Are you a criminology major?
Not anymore. No. Makes sense.
Is that the event? Sometimes paths shift, right? So your destiny has been obviously wildly affected by this particular crime. So for obvious reasons. So yeah, just take me back to your experience at school and kind of how you made it to that class.
Is she trying to say that?
All right.
Is she trying to say that she left criminology because of Kohberg? No, I don't know if I would leave the whole program just because somebody's a murderer.
Well,
I mean, TAs, they grade papers. I mean, like, come on now.
I thought about criminology for a while because it's just like, it's so interesting to get into. You get to learn about literally the criminal like behavior of these criminals' minds and like what works. And so I was also considering psychology at the time, which is now my major. I had that as a minor. But yeah, so the second week I remember going and he did introduce Bryan and his other TA, I forgot his name, and then just kind of went into the details of the class. And this class was pretty big. I would say like 300 students. It was a lecture hall, so very, very big class.
Just for clarity, Bryan Kohberger, the accused, he was the teacher's assistant, right? We always call it a TA, but that's short for teacher's assistant, right?
Yeah, so he was the teacher's assistant, their little helper while they're still in school, basically, just to get the knowledge.
So to be a teacher's assistant, it's kind of like a secondary teacher, obviously, right? They're a
Not really.
current student. In Brian's case, he was getting his PhD and was also working as a teacher's assistant.
Every teacher's assistant I've ever known of in my life, they grade papers, they hand out papers and stuff like that. They don't have any like they can't tell people what to do and what they can and cannot do. But
In this particular criminology class, which makes sense. They help with
I'm sure
grading.
Kohberger probably did.
And do they participate in class?
They do. Usually it's when a teacher notices a kid doing up and above. So kind of like just doing all their work, just really like teaching others. That's just kind of like how they pick out the TAs, just who stands out to them. So
So Brian was probably a pretty exemplary student in order to even have that kind of a prestigious place.
definitely, definitely, yeah, I think so. He
He probably sucked up.
definitely had some knowledge to get in there. And our professor was a very tough dude. So it had to take a lot for him to see something.
In a statement, Washington University's Vice President of Marketing and Communications says that, quote, Mr. Kohberger received an appointment as a teaching assistant at Washington State University during the fall 2022 semester. It is typical for students to receive a teaching assistantship or similar appointment as part of their PhD program, Wheeler explained. Here again, Cassie and Stephanie.
They said that he got that in December. November. So that this kid got a teaching assistant, and then let me rewind this. Hold on a second.
At Washington
I
State.
thought he was
It
longer
had to
than
take
that.
a lot for him to see something.
I thought it was longer than that.
In a statement, Washington University's Vice President of Marketing and Communications says that, quote, Mr. Kohberger received an appointment as a teaching assistant at Washington State University during the fall 2022 semester. It is typical for students to receive.
So during the fall semester, when's fall semester be starting? Is that September? Man,
A teaching
he was only in there since August. It's still
assistantship or similar appointment as part of their PhD program,
you big
Wheeler
dummy.
explained. Here again, Cassie and Stephanie.
There's a sweet apartment.
What was the class about?
We covered literally how to get away with murder. Like we covered pretty good basis because our professor at the time, he was a very like knowledgeable man. Like he worked with judges and he was a lawyer for years and he worked with a lot of authority. So he wanted to teach it how he learned, which was case studies, like actually living it. So we went into a lot of detail about criminal behavior, the behavior, why criminals do the thing. But this was more about cases. We would look over like a lot of cases and things like that. And we would go over the law. So a lot of just criminal justice things, a lot of lawyer and judge work.
Is there a part of you, because I'm still on the fence of, I really want to believe that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. He claims his innocence. I want to believe that because I like to believe that a human being couldn't pull that off. But again, I don't know him the way you do. Is there a part of you that thinks maybe he is innocent?
There is, yeah. I've had like a lot of people reach out to me just kind of like bashing him, like a lot of just like newspapers and stuff like that, kind of just like, oh, like trying to get like every little scoop out of me to like make him out to be a bad guy. But in reality, like this is someone's life that we're talking about, and it's like his reality as well. So there's a lot to take into like consideration there. Like, why would you want someone to go through all that and do all that and to think that they would, be capable of something like that? Like it just blows my mind how people are thinking about this case.
In retrospect, what did he seem like?
I remember walking in. Actually, he was pretty noticeable, believe it or not. But I walked in, saw him, and he just didn't say anything for weeks. He just like stood there fiddling with his cup. And this class was like an hour and a half long, sometimes up to 2 hours, like it just depended. It was a very long class for him to just be standing up in front of everyone. So when I was bored in the class, I would honestly just watch him because I had nothing to do. I already like looked at the notes and stuff, and so I would just like there's nothing else to watch.
And did that seem weird to have somebody just standing there for an hour and a half?
Yeah, why
Is
wasn't he
that
sitting there?
normal or is that odd behavior?
With my other TAs, they're definitely, like, on their laptop, and sometimes you would see him, like, go on here and there, but never for, like, more than, like, 10 minutes, I would say. Or he
Oh,
would
so
just,
just
like,
'cause he
sit
wasn't on
down
the
in
phone.
front of class, or sometimes he wouldn't even be there, it would just be the professor. But compared to our other TA, he would be on his laptop. Our teacher would be, asking him to go do TA things, like, "Hey, can you pull up this lecture?" and stuff like that. I just never saw any of that from Brian.
Was he just also observing the class or did it seem like he was just staring off into space?
Off to space, honestly. He would look up a couple times, but honestly, just, like, in his own little world.
And did he seem like he was interested in the content or like, you know how somebody you could see them and they look like they already know the information, so they're kind of just nodding along, or was he kind of checked out?
I would say both. Most of the time when, like, he looked like me in that situation, like, he was just, like, sometimes nodding here and there, I remember the professor trying to get his attention a couple times, and it would take him a couple times to, like, snap into it.
So here you are, you're in your criminology class, you're just observing 300-ish people around you. And yeah, you just sort of are looking at the people in front of you. So in this case, it's the professor and two additional teacher assistants. He's one of them. And did Bryan Kohberger and the other teacher assistant have any kind of a rapport?
No. I think I saw them together in the class maybe one time, but other than that, they were either switching off or there was no TA at all.
Let's stop here for a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Man, YouTube is rejecting my comments. Hey, Ashley, maybe put some cotton around it. Does it hurt her? If it's hurting, just maybe put some cotton around that's like around it and then place it over her eye. Oh man, I feel so bad for her. I know what it's like to have stuff on your eye and your face and you don't like it.
Oh, he means business.
I'm Graham
do this.
Close,
I know
a person or object, but I only... Here's a clip from one of our latest episodes. There was one demo we had for Season, an Intel podcast.
Sticks oral care treats about how we're supporting dog adoption.
It seemed like he was just there. Hair done.
.com/feed-good.
Oh, let me see.
How would you describe him physically?
He had a very clean look, very always shaven, very, like, hair done. He was always wearing, like, sweaters and jeans and looked nice. He was tall, white, dark hair, very skinny, slim fit. He just always seemed like he was just there, not interacting or anything, just there.
You had said that he seemed noticeable at first. What was noticeable? The fact that he was so quiet?
I guess so. I just wasn't what I was expecting when I first walked in the class. It was a lot to take in all at once. I feel like we were getting a lot of information, and half the time my brain would just check out and just automatic eyes to him because he was the only other person down there.
Did he have any friends?
Not that I saw. I mean, he was a very closed off TA. Some TAs like to share about their life and give us a whole PowerPoint and stuff, and he never saw that one from him. So I don't know much about his personal life, but very kept to himself anytime I saw him on campus or in class or office hours.
Did you have office hours with him?
Yes, it would be with a couple kids. I only went twice. Both times were unhelpful, so I left. It's basically just like a time to ask him questions, to ask him about work, to do work with him, to need help on case studies, just anything like that, or even studying for like a next exam or quiz. Those are what office hours are supposed to be for. But most of the time it was just a bunch of kids kind of either doing group work together or just a quiet place to like study or wherever. And he would just be like on his laptop, closed off like to himself.
Did he ever ask any personal questions to you?
No. No, I remember like trying to have a conversation one time, because I needed help with one of the assignments, and it was just kind of like, well, did you review the work? And I'm like, yes, I reviewed the work. And so kind of gave my attitude back, but it was
Maybe it's all. Maybe it's like autism or something.
After that,
I'll go with his
time, I think
words.
I just didn't end up going.
Maybe he's got
So everybody wants to know the same thing, right? We all like to
something wrong
believe in
with
our
him.
hearts that if
Obviously.
we come across somebody who's violent or dangerous, that we'd get a spidey sense. Or people always talk about, I had a sixth sense. So, kind of part of even why it's so important to talk about this stuff is, I'm so curious, did you have that feeling that he was capable or off? People have called him in the press very creepy in retrospect. Or did he just seem like an ordinary guy?
To be honest, I never got any of those feelings. However, I do remember this one incident that happened when I went into class. And usually you sit next to like a different person every day. It's not like everyone's like buddy buddies. So sit down, and the dude next to me, like straight off the bat when Bryan came in, was like, oh, doesn't he give you like weird vibes? And I was like, and that's like one comment that since now I'm like, oh my gosh, like how did I get, he said something about his eyes. It was like in the eyes. And now that I'm looking at him, I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But me personally, no.
So like in the days leading up, so I would imagine it's just business as usual, right? Thanksgiving break is on the horizon. You guys are taking finals probably, or at least preparing for finals. Does anything seem out of the ordinary in the days leading up to the murders in terms of your experience with Bryan?
I would say that before we even like heard, so there was like a time period of right when finals were happening and like right after, and it was straight A's, a lot of really good grades and good comments from Bryan himself. But before that, it was not so good. Very harsh grading, very not great. And I talked to so many of my classmates, and they're like, did you notice your grades going up? And he would go in detail on my like work and like all my other classmates' work about how good it was. But you can tell like the difference from before, that it was like, no, like you need to fix this, your grammar, all that.
Maybe he was trying to find somebody to fill in his spot, because he knew he'd be leaving soon.
Little nitty picky stuff.
Cassie's experience with Kohberger is not unique. It's been reported that former students have said he, quote, seemed preoccupied after the slayings and became an easier grader. But Kohberger's change in affect wasn't the only notable thing. Here's more from Cassie.
We also got a lot of complaints. I personally didn't see a problem in it, but a lot of the female writers and all that, because we do a lot of case studies and we'd have to make reports on them. A lot of people just thought he was very sexist as a TA, especially in like one-on-ones. Apparently, like he showed just a lot of anger towards them in a way, which I never experienced that. So I don't know. That's just what I got from my other classmates.
I had heard reports of that as well. Like, there was a lot written about the fact that he did these like posts to prisoners behind bars or people who have committed crimes. Like he almost did this poll to see what their personality traits were like, or, when they knew.
I was just looking at your chats. So Chris, you're right. They didn't have stairs on their balcony. And that is a violation code. That is a building code. We actually watched the body cam footage one time. It was the body cam footage. I believe it was the one with Kaylee. And the officers even say something about it like under their breath. And I caught it. I only know those things because my brother, my dad, my uncle, my cousin, they all build homes. So big, large homes they built. So I know a lot about homes. And my best friend's dad built homes.
It was time to kill, or sort of.
But I'm pretty sure,
they needed
that
he was
second
profiling.
That second story needed a staircase,
right? To sort of better understand how their brain worked. And then this hideous day happens. Tell me about that day.
Honestly, it was just another day because when we all heard about it, we were very
I'm
We
gonna
were
look
very
it up.
heartbroken, but we didn't hear from the school or anything. We just heard from like news. We didn't even know like it didn't even click that it was in Idaho at U of I until like maybe the next week. Like is when it like really hit me and my roommate and anyone close to me really. Like it just didn't register. And then when everything started catching up over break and stuff is when it really just hit me and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is pretty close." And then when I really started to realize is when I would get calls from out of state family and they'd be like, "You got to get home, like it's almost break, like why aren't you there early?" And all that stuff, and, my mom and my dad, my siblings, just constant calls about, "Get my ass home," because it's getting a little scary, especially when they hadn't, like, caught him and all that.
Okay.
During that time, there was a national manhunt. It must be a very scary feeling to know that there is a killer at large, frankly, targeting beautiful girls like yourself in the same exact age group.
It was pretty scary because everyone at WSU was wondering, "What are we supposed to do?" Because U of I had already set a curfew and they took, precautions and they closed, like, class for a couple days or something like that. They took their precautions, but WSU was like, "No." They sent out an email, they were like, "This has nothing to do with us." They were like, "We send our love to the families." They expressed that pretty well, but they were also like, "This isn't our business. We will continue class. We will not have a curfew." And then to think that it was like under their own roof is like, oh, like, are you kidding? And for the people like myself and the couple other 100 kids who stayed when everyone else left, when they found out there was a murder on the loose, that's terrifying. Like, he was, like, probably on campus, doing his thing until he left for his break, and the fact that he was in class and still replying to our Canvas notifications, and I would get, like I remember looking at all the emails that he sent me after it all happened, and a couple weeks later, they were just gone, and I was like, "Oh my god."
What does that mean they were gone? Like they got removed?
Yeah, so any Canvas notifications I had from him, because I literally remember like looking through all of them and I was like, just, kind of like observing all of them and seeing if I noticed anything. And I had all of his little edits and stuff. And then I went back one day to look at them and Canvas had removed all of them. It was just very in detail, good notes about my work after everything happened. Very like, it wasn't short and sweet.
Oh, he turned into a talker.
So this man potentially murdered 4 people, and then he went back to class, and then he still continued to grade papers and maybe did it in a lighter, happier way.
Yes. Yeah.
So like, what do you make of that? Does that mean
I think he was definitely trying to, if it was him, could possibly like not be him, but I think if it was, he was trying to cover it up, in a way, obviously. And that's like the first thing you do after it all goes down. You kind of want to act like nothing happened, maybe even make yourself seem a little bit better, maybe a more better guy than some of your classmates might describe you. You don't want to hear about how you might be a sexist when you just killed like 3 girls. Like that's not, you want to steer completely opposite of that.
So
There
was
were
he a
so many
sexist?
things that he did that just didn't make sense. If you were getting your PhD in criminology or criminal justice or whatever, why would you go the route of revisiting the place so many times and not checking your phone ping? That's
'Cause he's
one of the
human?
first things we learned in class, everything, how you get caught. And so he already had this down, so it doesn't.
I went to school for criminal justice. Now I wasn't going for my PhD, but I got my bachelor's, so I could have went for my master's. But yeah, he forgot his schooling.
Doesn't really make sense why he would
He
do so
forgot
many
all of his schooling.
things to jeopardize people catching him.
Oh, that's awesome.
we were just reviewing this yesterday. So it sounds like he was pinged, just to bring anybody up to speed. So his cell phone pinged about 15 times in and around the area. leading up to the murders, and then after. But I can't agree with you more. It doesn't totally add up. That's so interesting to me that you really did study that.
Let's stop here for another break. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
With the price solution.
Or I can have.
Ever notice how, but the pedigree brand 100,000 dogs since 2008. Shop Pedigree products at your preferred retailer and learn more about how we're supporting dog adoption by visiting pedigree.com/feed-good.
Tell me everything you can remember about the days after.
The days after, physically, it was his eyes for me. They were very sunken and very black. It was like he hadn't slept in like days, maybe weeks. That's just what the appearance looked like. But I was never one to judge. I was like, okay, long night. We have finals coming up. It's okay. But yeah, that's one of the main things. And I guess a lot of unshavenness and a little messier. And then right after, you could tell the difference.
Can you describe what it was like to find out that Bryan Kohberger, your teacher's assistant, had been arrested and accused of the murders?
Yeah, so I was in my dorm, in the Olympia dorm at WSU, with my roommate. And I remember we were looking at a case because it came out. She's like, oh, I'm going to look at it. I was like, okay, yeah, just tell me. I was cleaning or whatever. And she was like, holy shit, Cassie, like, it says criminology. And I was like, no way. And she was like, you have to go on campus right now. I was like, why are you freaking out? Like, she wouldn't really tell me at first. And then she was like, who's your TA? So I told her, and then she was like, there's no way. You're not going to believe this. And so we both started freaking out. And yeah, that was the moment. And then she was kind of like, I need to get the hell out of here. So she dipped a little early for Thanksgiving break. And yeah, I still had to save that extra week. So I was just kind of like sitting with that information. And I remember not wanting to go out because even before, I remember my roommate not letting me go out. She, like, anytime I'd be like, hey, like there's a party going on. No, you're staying in. You know, there's a murderer out there. Very hard lecture about no going out and none of that. But it was just crazy.
When he went to class, was he participating in any of the conversations about the murders?
No, but we did discuss it in class. We did have, I don't remember if it was from the school or the class, but a lot of notifications I got from Canvas, you know, like discussing the murders, like kind of just like, hey, like everyone needs to stay focused, but this is a very troubled time, you know, whatever. Just giving a reminder to like all the classmates, like stay focused. But we did talk
Stay
about the case,
focused.
and we even like kind of went in details of
Stay focused. 4 people were just unalive 10 minutes away.
everything that went down. I
You gotta stay
remember
focused.
a lot of people asking questions about it, so like raising their hands and stuff, and there was a lot. So going around the room, and our professor was just there answering the questions.
Look at these
And
gorgeous people up
I
here.
don't remember seeing Bryan in class when we did talk about it. I remember hearing that he was, but I didn't really go to class after everything happened. It kind of took me on a kind of hit me a little bit where I was like, this is getting a little too real. So I kind of stepped back from criminology and all that.
You changed your major, huh? So like criminology is not your
Do
thing
real
anymore?
for.
I will always have a special place in my heart for criminology, but I don't think it's my time. Or, you know, when everything happened, it just got so real. And I was like, this might not be for me because I don't know. I was just thinking too psychologically into it. And so I changed my major to my minor, which was psychology, hoping that leads to a better future with that.
It's very traumatic, and I'm super sorry that you had to even experience anything so close to something so disgusting. Did you have any knowledge, or did you know any of the victims?
No, I did not. Didn't know a lot of people from U of I. I knew a couple people who had friends who knew, you know, like friend of a friend. And so even then it affected them in such a way, you know. So I could only imagine. And then we did have a couple like memorial stuff, like a candlelit thing and a little other one to show our goodbyes and place like flowers and pictures of them and stuff, like at the U of I statue, the plaque that they have. So yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's pretty moving. Like, even as I talk to you, I feel for your mom and dad because I would want you out of there. It seems dangerous. There's a part of us that all think, oh my God, it could be you, right? Like, he could have been staring at you as a teacher's assistant and targeted you. What do you make of it? So now, like, over a year now behind you, what is your take on it? Is it possible? Like, does it track for you? Is it impossible that he could have pulled this off?
There is a very, very clear like possibility that he could have done this. And when you bring up alibi, that's very like it just almost makes sense to cover up like the missing pieces. Like if only there was an alibi, it would all make sense, but there isn't, at least from like what we all know. So it's all still so confusing to say like if he did it or if he didn't, but there are just so many things that he did after, like the cell phone ping and all that, that just wouldn't make sense if he didn't do it. So I don't know. I'm leaning towards did it, but I also hold a lot of sympathy still. I'm a very empathetic person. So not to say like what he did wasn't fucked up, but if he didn't do it, like I'm still holding that, you know. And there's just so much that went into it. It was all just so much. I hope like one day it just all gets figured out and can finally close the case.
And the school now, like, is everything sort of settled down? Do people still talk about it? Is it not a big topic of conversation anymore?
Yeah, when this like hit, it was like huge. Biggest thing that happened. But last year at WSU was a very crazy year. It was a very sad year for Pullman, and then this kinda hit and it was like whole Pullman's, like, name was changed to this is where it happened, and so it was just traumatizing for the entire school, and even, like, myself and a lot of people I knew, like, I even met people at the Vancouver campus because 'cause I'm at the Vancouver campus now, who moved because of the situation. And I talked to like so many people at my campus now who just were like in my class, sitting there like in front of me now, who I never met, like explaining to me how hard it was for them to where they had to move because they couldn't like even be in the same tiny little town anymore. Like it didn't feel the same, which is just so sad to hear about. And yeah, it's just very sad year for WSU Pullman.
One last thing, I just got like covered in chills. You bring up such a big point that I think we should probably dive deeper in. He was only there for a year. And, the victims have this, kind of iconically fun looking life. Is it possible that he was just this outsider kind of wishing to have it or became obsessed with one of them and just lost his mind one night? Or was this just a perfect storm that was brewing and they were just the unfortunate targets and it could have been anyone? It's so hard to know.
They both could be like such possible answers. Crazy to think about. Yeah, the party life at both schools were both pretty big. If you weren't in the party life, it was I can definitely see more of an outsider like standpoint. But then again, like everyone was so accepting. If you would just walk up to any house, you'd be in a party. Like no one would like kick you out or anything unless you're being weird, which could be the case. But very accepting schools, both of them. Very kind hearts. Everyone had a smile on their face. And even when like tough times like this, even we still like would have smiles on our faces. We'd take a break from schools and like as a community, not even like the school policy. Like we would all come together and be like, we're gonna go to a memorial instead, or we're gonna hold this event for them. So yeah, it was a very good community to have while everything else was kind of falling down around us.
Just in closing, is there anything that we don't have right that just based on your experience, just in general, that people just have wrong?
Before the situation happened, they kind of make him seem to be like this creep who didn't have anything for him going, but he was like almost done with his life. He was at his goal. He had so much of a future ahead of him. And to say that he didn't is just straight out lies. It's not that he was like a weird outsider dude who didn't have anything going for him. He was there and oh gosh, I can't even imagine. That's all we wish for to get to that goal where he was. And he just threw it all away, which is so sad. But either way, it's a very unfortunate trail of events that happen.
More on that next time. For more information on the case and relevant photos,
Oh, they didn't let us know what was going to happen next time. Well, how about that? Well, let me share this with you, and then I'll take the other picture down. You're about to see the cutest picture you've ever seen in your life, if you're ready for it. Well, bam. It's not that big. Let me make it bigger. Let me make it bigger. Look at these guys. Those are my dogs right now, passed out. Little babies. What was I going to show you? I was going to show you something else, I thought. Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are my girls are passed out behind me. So tomorrow is going to be Xanapalooza Day. It's a day to be silly and celebrate life. So make sure tomorrow, you do something silly. Tell someone a joke. Make someone smile. Something like that. Something like that, So sad. It's so sad. Yeah. I know. Are they the cutest ladybug? Those are my babies. Mine are hide scared from the fireworks. There's fireworks going off. They just can't hear them, I guess. The one's head's on the floor now, but I think it's because they're with their mama. They know I got their back. I mean, I talk to these guys all day long. They're my best friends. As I tell them, I'm like, you're my best friends. I love them little dogs. There's nothing. Oh, I wanted to show you, or I wanted to look to see if there was any paperwork, but I don't think that there is. I don't think we've not had a live to where haven't went over the paperwork for all the paperwork in this case. Does anybody have any questions over this case? Anything like that? And no questions, a dumb question. We could answer it for you, maybe. Wow, gotta keep going. There we go. Nope, still just the scheduling order. He is going to trial June 2nd. That's what they say, That's what they say. Thanks, fur baby mom. I appreciate that. Did you ever tell me if that was your cat? I think you did, and I probably didn't see it. But that cat's the coolest cat I've ever seen. My cat used to sit like that. That looks like a cat that just got caught licking itself. Why did he kill him? I don't know. It is. It's cute. It's a bow tie. My cat would never. He would never. I got him a cat collar with a bell when he was a kitten. He was like he was trying to get it. It was so funny. They do, demon dog. They do. I know that my babies are up there waiting on me. My old dogs. Old dogs. I'm have so many dogs up there. Jeez. I grew up with 3. Now I got 2 more. 2 I want him. Is he a little butt? That's so funny. He looks cute with a bow tie. Like you can have. You don't want him. I like him. Oh, serious. Isabel, our girl Isabel. She's not usually in the chat at night. She's hands down the biggest Elvis fan I've ever met. She's coming all the way from Scotland to go to Graceland. He snuggles. Oh, my cat won't snuggle. He'll snuggle with Vincent. Someone explain that one to me. How did my cat fall in love with him? I guess same way I did. But yeah, they're always hanging out. It's so cute. It's so cute. He never just hangs out with me. He never wants to just like sit here and just kind of hang loose. But wherever Vincent is, when he gets home from work, if he's like laying on the bed, just like on his like laptop, like laying across the bed, or on the couch, the cat's with him. He's in the kitchen, the cat's with him. Cat gets on the countertop so he can be right up in his face. And I'm like, get that cat off the counter. He don't move. Hey, Karina. Oh, sparklers. Your other cat sleeps by your husband. Oh, one for each of you. I guess I'm going to have to get myself my own cat. 16 years I've spent with that little butt head, and he don't even want to sit with me. That's what it is. Ashley, it's his energy. He doesn't Vincent don't have none to get, you know what I mean? He doesn't have any, like, I have it. Cat's probably like, I'm staying away from mom. He still likes me though. He still comes around a little bit. Flea collar stays on. See, my cat wouldn't do any collar. Nope, no collars. But what's great, I don't know what the heck is they're putting up in this grass, okay? But we've only had fleas. We've lived here 7 years. We've had fleas 1 year, and they were so bad it was ungodly. We bought all the medicines. None of them were working. We finally got rid of them, but we've never had fleas. We've never had to give our animals flea medicine or anything. And I think it's because we're only here usually, you know what I mean? They only go one other place 10 days out of the year, and that's in September. But we've never had fleas. It's so crazy to me. And I think it's because they, all the pesticides they put out on the lawn or something. I don't know. Because I check them for them. And they would bite the crap out of me. Like, I would be eaten up. Like, one night, I would be eaten up. But yeah. I'll have to fall asleep for a minute. You lost your cat? Oh. My cat jumped off the balcony a couple times or got pushed off. But he just meowed at the bottom. You know, he ain't going nowhere. He's like, Mom, come down here and get me. I fell off the balcony again. Frontline is that's what we used to use for baby mom. My mom used to put it on our dogs. We'd only have to put it on even like once a year instead of once a month, just once a year. It was like they were fine. But these guys, we've never had a flea problem. Now I know with Mia, my Weimaraner, it's harder for them to like stick to her because of her like fur. But you can see her Raya a little bit. Maybe if can I put this thing down? Let me take this down. Wait, it's still showing it. Oh, it's because I have a comment on there. I was like, why is it doing that still? Why is it showing it? There we go. There, you can see her a little bit now, right there. Riley, you dreaming? Her lips quivering. Well, I guess I'll jump off here. Dawn, yeah. Well, we did have a dog when we first got her. She was a Weimaraner lab mix. She was full of fleas. Like we rolled her over and her poor little belly. Oh my God, they're everywhere. And I was like, go get Dawn. It was like midnight. You know what I mean? I was like, Vince like, what are we gonna do? I was like, go get Dawn. We have a 70 pound and a 40 pound, 50 pound. And you know, I don't know. They have enough room. I mean, that's not it. They're always with me, so it doesn't matter. Like if I were to only be in my bed, they will be with me. They love it. If I head towards the bed, the Weimaraner jumps in Vincent's spot in the pillows, and then the other one goes to the bottom. We were always together. We could live in a van together. I mean, like really, these dogs do not go anywhere without me. So if I'm like in the closet, even my dog will come in the closet. Oh my gosh, we have walk-in closets, but they're not like super huge. They're just a little walk-in closet. The dog comes in with me. I'm like, there's no room for you, girl. She's like, we'll make room. The big one back there. Look at her head. Mia. There she is. I woke her up. Oh, she didn't look happy. She didn't look happy about that. And sorry, I didn't mean to whistle so loud. I'm just amazed that these guys stayed in with me this long. Oh, thanks, Mary Beth. You're amazing too. And I saw your picture. I don't know if you saw me say it in the chat. You've come a long way. You've come a long way. Well, thank you guys for coming tonight. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to come back during the day so we can finish off this chapter. Shit, I might even pop back on tonight if Vincent's sleeping. And then we'll do part 5, and we could do part 5 all in one. And then it looks like part 6 is pretty thick, but it's Steve's story. So we'll probably do all that at once. So maybe 3 more, 2 more, something like that. And we'll be done with the book. So we will be done with the book. And then we're going to move on to, I'm going to do some polls to see what you guys are interested in. Because I don't know if anyone's really interested in Crystal Rogers' case. I'm interested in it. I think it's a cool case to look at, but it's not for everyone. I mean, you know, it's an older case. What else we got? Sebastian Rogers. Nothing's really going on there. Everybody's fighting with each other. And I ain't trying to jump on that. You know, I mean, I don't need content that much. You know, we got content over here. We cool. We cool. But I got the FOIA for our boy, Preston Lord, the 16-year-old cute as a button kid that was beaten and then danced on by kids at a Halloween party. I have the FOIA, the full FOIA. I have those dirty little bastards text messages. I've got it all. I've got it all. It's disgusting. What they did to that kid was so wrong. So we definitely going to hit that one up. I heard that something about Netflix. Is that true for a baby mom? Lord have mercy. How? You know what I mean? You like the Crystal Rogers? Me too. Well, I got all the paperwork for Crystal Rogers' case. The doc has sent it over to me. What a nice guy. What a nice guy. I got to buy him a coffee. They like to buy me a coffee app. So, but thank you guys so much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I will see you guys tomorrow night at about 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for real this time. Check. Yeah. You can see like right here, my elbow does have a little bit of a bruise. I knocked that thing harder than crap. It knocked me to the floor. But I'll see you guys tomorrow on the live. Happy 4th of July. Have a great Friday, isn't it? Yeah, Friday tomorrow. So last day of the week. Sorry you guys had to go if you were off today and then you have to go tomorrow. That sucks. That's just stupid. Shouldn't have to do that. But thank you guys. I'll see you guys all tomorrow night on the live. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all those things. That way you can be alerted to all new content. Don't forget to go over and subscribe to Unfiltered with Tanya. That's my second channel. Bye, guys.